Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Spirit Lounge podcast. With me, David.
And me, Glenda. And we are two psychic mediums from both sides of the pond.
Glenda is in Australia.
And David is in the UK.
And we're here to talk about, discuss and give our opinions on all things spiritual, including psychics and mediumship.
And if you've listened to the podcast before, you know how much we love to laugh while keeping it real, honest and down to earth.
As well as having those discussions, there'll also be guest interviews and maybe some other surprises.
So come with us now on our podcast journey and let's see what's happening in the Spirit Lounge for today's episode.
Well, hello listeners and welcome back to the Spirit Lounge. As always, I'm here with the glamorous Glenda over there in Australia. Hello, Glenda.
Hello, David. How are you? Hello, listeners, and welcome back to week three. Week three, I think, is it week three?
I think so, something like that. I don't know. I lose count. I don't know what day it is. But anyhow, we're excited because in today's Spirit Lounge, we have another special guest. So we have Craig Morris, a psychic medium, who I first met actually many years ago, not at a spiritual event, but at Birmingham's Gay Pride. We had a fabulous time. Craig started his journey with spirit when his granddad passed over in 2009, whilst working as a cabin crew for an airline. So Craig's dream career was to fly as a pilot, but it seemed that the spirit world had a different plan for Craig. So though Craig has been doing this work for a number of years, he's a great believer in continued development and that we never stop learning as mediums. And so Craig also teaches other people how to do this work as well. He's also very privileged to have met and worked alongside the late and great Colin Fry. He very much endorsed Craig's work as a medium, but we'll get more into that a little bit later. So for now, let's get into the conversation and welcome Craig to the Spirit Lounge. Hello, Craig.
Hello. How are you both? You well?
Good.
Good. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Nice to be
here. No problem. No problem at all. So
yeah.
Let's get into it. Let's get into the gossip.
Oh my God. I'm just like straight away want to go, what? Were you cabin crew? Well, like you weren't working up in the plane. Were you like, hello, I've got your mother here?
Imagine that. I always joked and said that. And I still do to this day, to be fair. But obviously, my dream was to be a pilot, but that never happened. And also, it costs so much money to be able to do that as well. But I always often joke and say to people that imagine being on the flight deck as the captain, doing the welcome PA and saying, just before we take off, I need to speak to Mr. and Mrs. Johnson in seat 11A and B. I've got your mother-in-law here, and she wants to say hello. That'll be the quickest way to get the plane emptied. So, yeah.
Evidence, though.
Yeah, I often joke about that, but no, I did. Yes, I was cabin crew for a wonderful airline called Thomas Cook, who is sadly no longer flying. Absolutely loved it, and it was through that time that my granddad passed away, and that's when I started to become aware once again of the spirit world. So that's where the journey began, to be fair. So my granddad never ever wanted me to fly either. He lost.
Oh, really?
No, he lost his brother in the war. He was a navigator in the Air Force, and the plane had actually he died in a plane crash. So that's why my granddad said, "Don't fly, please don't fly." So that's why in my book I actually often say, even out loud when I'm on the road, I often say to people, "I blame my granddad for this, and that I'm doing this work because he never wanted me to fly." So yeah.
Oh, I've got chill. I just said that. Got a bit cold. So then what was that transition then, Craig? So talk to us about that journey from cabin crew stepping into this spiritual world.
So yeah, Grandad passed in September 2009, and our neighbour Alvin a little while after said, "Why don't you go and see a medium?" What's a medium? And anyway, so of course found out what a medium was, and went to go and see a lady, and she told me that I'd be doing this for a living. I was like, yeah, okay, but I was still flying at this point, and I just thought, and it was also at the same time where I was coming out as well, coming out the closet, and that itself was a challenge, and just lots of things happening all at the same time. So, and then I got to a point where I wasn't enjoying flying anymore, so I actually stopped flying. I resigned from that, and I got myself back into travel for a company in the Midlands, and got myself into a circle, which was good. But before all of that, sort of in the background, after my reading with Lorraine in Hensford, she'd said to me and introduced me to the Arthur Findlay College at Stansted. So I'd signed up to their to their newsletter, and at the same time, I was going to be moving down to Harlow with an opportunity I'd been given. So I thought, okay, brilliant. That's great. It's literally 7 miles down the road. I can go and
Yeah.
develop. Brilliant. And anyway, that move then fell through. As the same week it fell through, I got an email from the AFC saying, "Oh, we've just opened up our centre in Stafford, which was 15 minutes from my house where I lived anyway." So,
Uh,
oh, okay, so maybe this is meant to be. So I
hmm.
went to the centre in Stafford, Stafford Spiritualist Church, and that's kind of where the journey started. Got myself into an awareness group. So it basically seemed to happen quite quickly. That was the thing where I sort of resigned. I got myself a normal job into like a normal routine because flying, you could never get a normal
But,
routine.
hmm.
But with a normal sort of 9 to 5 job, it was easier. So that kind of then lay the foundations for my spiritual development.
Interesting. So do you think then,
Interesting. Very.
do you think that then, because Glenda talks a lot about soul contracts, right? And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Not that I disbelieve it, but in that place where I'm not. So on the face of it, you could have been or should have been a pilot, however you want to put that. But here you are talking to dead people. So do you, do you so do you believe in okay, our path is set out for us before we get here, or no, do you believe that we sign a contract to say, right, we're going to do this, this, and this? So do you feel like mediumship was always part of your path? I know we have got free will.
Excuse me. Yeah, I do. And no, I kind of look at it now and I think, yeah, but like you say, yeah, we do have free will. So, I've met and seen mediums over the years that have sort of got themselves into, got themselves a really, really good following, great at what they do, and then all of a sudden they're like, not for me anymore. So, I'm of the belief that yeah, even though I get the idea of like before we get here, it's sort of like, right, that's what our job is, that's what we're going to do, that's our vocation, let's get on with it. But at
Mm,
the same time, I also think, like you say, we've got free will, so we don't have to do anything that we don't want to do. I mean, I love my mediumship, and if I was to go back and do a normal job, I would still serve the churches like I did before, where I had a normal job and then I'm going to
Yeah.
yeah,
do a normal. So I would never stop my mediumship. So I do believe that my mediumship's there, but I believe I have the free will on how I go about it. So whether or not I do it full time, like professional as I am now, or whether or not I decide to have a normal life of just a normal job and then doing my mediumship separately, if you like. So
yeah.
I do believe I've got that free will there. But I also think that opportunities that I've had over the years and jobs that I've had over the years and experiences have helped to navigate my mediumship to where it is today as well. That's the other
I
thing that,
believe that as well. Mm.
yeah,
No, I do believe that. Because we all say
Absolutely.
spirit use our life experience. I found a reference
absolutely,
to take us in
absolutely,
ways or just to bring through different evidence.
yeah.
Referencing certain
Yeah.
things symbolically. So, yeah, no, I absolutely I agree with that.
Mm.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
what keeps you in it then, Craig? What keeps you doing the mediumship?
There's different things. I think. Excuse me. I think so. I was the last sort of maybe what 18 months, 2 years have been certainly last year was a challenge. We had a loss in our family, but it the last sort of 18 months or so, 2 years. The reason why they've been a challenge is because, and you guys don't know this, but the even though I love what I do as a medium, and I'm out there, I'm visiting different parts of the country, and I'm also overseas, in different countries teaching. Um, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, the admin, the boring rubbish
Hmm.
chisel,
Yeah,
it's got that busy, and trying to do and balance everything. At one point I sat here and I said, I can't do this anymore, I literally cannot cope because it's too much. And um So I'm very lucky now. Wayne does quite a lot for me. I've got another lady, Julie, who does a huge amount for me as well. So that's freed up a lot of time for me now to sort of have a more of a focus. So I think if you'd have asked me these questions, if you'd have asked me that question maybe last year or the year before, it would have been very different because I'd have been thinking, actually, I'm contemplating stepping back because of how it was unfolding. But then I
Hmm.
realised, hang on, I've got control of this. This isn't them. This is me. So I need to think it. So what keeps me going is the fact that not only am I my own boss, but I enjoy the variety of what I do. I enjoy the demonstrating. I enjoy the teaching. Obviously I've done private readings and I do them, but it's it's the variety of it, and I kind of enjoy having time off when I want as well. That's the other thing. So
Yeah,
it's there's a
yeah,
mixture of things that I like, to be truthful.
yeah,
With all of your knowledge, with the background that you've got and, being a teacher and that, do you believe that mediums are born or do you believe that they're made?
Ooh, good question. I see. I very much believe that when we're younger, as children, of course, we don't have like lots of things in life, i.e., bills and jobs and all of that to contend with. So our minds, when we're so much younger, um, are so free of just the daily rubbish and nonsense that I believe there is an awareness there, and I've heard, I've seen of so many of young kids, including family and friends kids as well, that have like seen and heard things to the point where I've had family messaging me saying, "Craig, is this normal?" I'm like,
mm,
"Yeah, it is. It's fine." Not all of them, but for some of them certainly. So I believe there's that. So at the same time, I also think that for some people, it's just something that they've had from the point of like, since they were like however young to like right through their life. So in some aspects, I think for some people, it's like, listen, I'm born a medium. This is, I have that awareness. It's that simple. For others, I think it's like, yeah, there's something there, but where perhaps they've had experiences at home or whatever it may have been, and they're like, but it's been more consistent. So they've gone to a spiritualist church or wherever, and all of a sudden, they started to hone in on their ability. So I think both, if I'm completely honest, in my opinion, that I mean, again, in another 12 months' time or 5 years' time, I might have a different answer because
mm,
we're always evolving, always evolving. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
yeah,
And I guess that's important for our listeners and the new mediums developing, that it's okay to change your perspective on things, to change your beliefs
oh
as
yeah,
you go on. I guarantee you, Craig, have changed a million times since the day you started to, you used to believe that to now it's like, doesn't fit with me.
yeah,
So
yeah. I
it's,
mean,
and
my friend Steve Holbrook, he's a medium here in the UK. Travels up and down the country, all over, and one or two places in Europe. And if anybody's read his story, when he was younger, he was like seeing things or hearing things, rather hearing things, and his mom took him to the doctors to sort of say, listen, what's going on? In a nutshell, this is. And anyway, the doctor said, it's not me that you need to come and see. It's a spiritualist or a spiritualist church that you need,
wow.
wow,
which of course wouldn't
You,
normally be something that
mm,
was put out there. But yeah, and of course, so for him, it's something that's just been there all his life practically. So everybody's experience is very different, and that's why I say with different experiences that you have through life, that's where your opinions can change, and that's okay. Just
yeah,
because. I mean, Billy, Billy Cook, me and him, there's been many times where me and him have like, actually, no, I don't get that, or I don't agree with that. But it's like, okay, well, that's fine. We don't fall out over it, but we listen to each other's thoughts
mm,
on our difference of opinions, if that makes sense, which I think is good. I think it's important.
oh,
yeah,
it's me and
absolutely.
David every week. You're full of shit. No, you're not. Here you are. Not in that term, but you know, we are the same.
Not on
We
camera.
don't agree on no. We don't agree on everything, and that's okay. And we are
Yeah,
able to have those opinions. You should be able to
Yeah,
have those opinions
absolutely.
without holding a grudge or without, being no, I'm right and you're wrong,
Mm.
because we all have different beliefs. We all have different values. So, we should be able to listen to each other, exactly what you said,
Yeah.
and not fall out over it.
Oh, I agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It all comes down to life experience. We've all got different life experiences. We've all been through different things, and so we're naturally going to have different opinions, aren't we?
Yeah.
I talk about experiences, Craig. Let's talk about your experience with the late and great Colin Fry, who I've been watching since I was God knows how long, since we had living TV when that first
Yeah.
started. So that's like donkeys years ago, when cable TV first came out. So how did that come about, Craig? Let us know, how did you cross paths with Mr. Colin Fry?
Excuse me. So the very first time I went to go and see Colin was in Birmingham. I'd gone with a couple of work colleagues, and this was obviously when my journey, it kind of very early days, like within the first few years, and. Excuse me, and I'd gone with my two friends Sarah and Kaz, and we got to Birmingham, and it was all good and everything. So in the second half, he came out. Sorry, Sarah and Betty rather, not Kaz, and we were in the second half. And he came out and he said, "Has anybody got any questions?" So I put my hand up straight away. I had no idea what I was going to ask, but I just waffled something. And anyway, so he took the question, and then I met him afterwards, as he did like the sign up and photos and stuff like that, and which was lovely. And then from there, I was kind of hooked. I don't know, I just resonated with the way that he worked and things. So I'd gone to see him lots of other times, and it was then every time I'd gone and he said, "Who's got a question?" I was usually one of the first to put my hands up. And there was one point in Wolverhampton, I put my hand up, and he just said, "This is, bearing in mind, this is in front of about 700 or 800 people," and he said, "Oh, Craig, how did I know that you were going to put your hand up?" So that was it. He said, "Right, Craig, stand up, stand up." And he said, "Right, Craig, this is everybody. Everybody, this is Craig. He's a local medium in the area. I'm sure if you were to speak to him, he'd be able to offer you sittings and things." Anyway, so spoke to him again afterwards, and that was that. And then it was 2014, yeah, 2014. I was when I was kind of going through lots of different changes with my work again coming out and stuff, and I on Monday the 10th of November 2014 I booked to go and see him and Derek Acora in Glasgow, and it was the same morning I'd actually resigned from my full-time job to go professional as a
Mm,
medium.
mm.
So I'd got up to Glasgow and got to the hotel, and I almost asked the receptionist, "Is there a Mr. Fry booked in?" But I thought they're not going to tell me, so I left it. Went to the lift, and the first person I bumped into, of course, was Colin Fry. So they were staying in the same hotel. So I thought you just couldn't make that up, couldn't make
Right.
it up. So that was it. Quick hello, literally all but 2 minutes, and then went to go and watch them do the Dem. Fabulous. At the end of the night, I was just going to wait, have a quick photo, great Dem, and then be on my way. And Colin had actually invited me. He said, "You're on your own, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Right, come back with us, and we'll have drinks at the hotel." I was like, "Oh, sound." So I was sat up with Colin, Derek, and the crew. But just as we'd sat down, I remember it distinctively. Derek was on the phone to Gwen, and Colin said, "Have you enjoyed the show?" And I said, "Yeah, it's been fabulous. Nice to see you both work." Because I'd seen them work individually, but
Mm.
he said, "What about together?" I said, "Fabulous, really, really good." And he said, "I'm pleased to hear it." He said, "So I've got something to put to you. Okay, how do you feel?" He said, "Well, actually, first, he said, I've had people out watching you." He said, "You won't know this, but I've had people out watching you work. And he said, a lot of what
Ooh.
I'm hearing." He said, "So how do you feel about joining me as my guest on my tour next year?" And that was his Sixth Sense celebration tour. So my jaw just hit the floor, and I was just like, "This is bonkers. This is." And it was kind of like being sat with the Steven Gerrard and David Beckham of like mediumship as such, really.
Yeah.
That's the way I described it to my
Yeah.
brother, because I don't do football. But and that was it. And I was just like, what? So, and that's kind of where that journey started. And so, and then I think it was the week after, they were both, sorry, yeah, they were both in, oh, where were they? Not far from where we are now, actually, in Yorkshire. They weren't too far away. So I'd gone to see them there, and then I think the week again after that, Colin was in Crewe at the Lyceum Theatre, and I got a message from his tour manager saying, right, tomorrow night you're guesting with Colin at Crewe, bring a suit, because I was going to go along to just watch, you see, because I'd messaged Colin saying, listen, you sold out, I can't get a ticket, but have a great show, sort of thing, have a great den. And that's when I got the message to say, well, bring a suit, you're going to guest. And yeah, so I got to the Lyceum Theatre and I sat in the auditorium empty. And as I sat there, I was just looking out and thinking, okay, this doesn't look too bad. And at that, I think it was Colin said to me, because you're thinking it doesn't look too bad now, don't you? Like, it looks like fairly small. I went, yeah. He went, wait till there's 600 people in front of you. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, right. And that was it. That's kind of where that journey then started. So that was my first ever appearance with Colin in Crewe, and then of course from there, the after Christmas, I was then back on the road with him. We'd gone out to Spain, gone out to Benidorm with him and Derek as well. That was good fun. And then yeah, I was on the road with him up and down the country, Ireland as well. So it was just such an exciting opportunity. It really was, and an exciting time. Traveling up and down the country with Colin Fry, it was crazy, really. But yeah,
What was he like? Like, was he cool? Was he like, what was he really like?
he, as you would see him, like sort of on the stage and TV, he had such a great sense of humour, a really, really good sense of humour. And even after once he'd done his dems, and then he'd sort of obviously do the meet and greets and everything, he'd talk everything mediumship. And then afterwards, wherever we were staying, we'd usually just be back in the hotel, and it'll be, a bit of food and chill out, and that was it. And he honestly, it's not that we wouldn't talk about his tour or his work or anything, but it was just like normal, like chat. It was like stuff like holidays and things like that, just normal stuff. And like I say, he had such a great sense of humor, and he was certainly somebody dedicated to his work, and he
Mm.
obviously gave um so many people some great opportunities. He really, because of course it wasn't just myself who worked with him. There were other mediums, and Bex, who I'm good friends with. She worked with him at the same time I did, and yeah, he was just such a funny. Funny guy, he really was, and he'd have the time of day for anybody. I mean, I remember, I think it was after Crewe, the night after Crewe, and we were outside the hotel, and he was having a cigarette, and there was a couple that we just heard, "Morning, Colin." And anyway, so they can, and he actually called them over. He said, obviously they, he knew how they knew him, but they said, "Oh, we come to see you last night. We've travelled over from wherever it was, like Wales, I think it was. They travelled over to see him
Mm.
work, and it was just, and literally stood there for about 15, 20 minutes just talking to them. So he would give time to anyone really. He was good like that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, number one, it pays to be a stalker. Number two, you don't know who's watching.
Oh, I
No,
was also say
exactly.
you never know who's watching.
No, you
Never know who's
don't.
watching. And
Yeah.
what did you learn from that those times with Colin Craig? What
I
did you
learned
take
the
away
craft.
from that?
Um, so the very first night that I worked with him, and was his guest, in the second half. So literally, I had 15 minutes, and it was like two messages. Deliver your two messages, and then I'll come back out, and then that's it. Perfect, no worries. And so that was that. I then came off, and I was then sat in the wings, obviously watching him work for the rest of the event. And he he was giving two ladies a message, like there were two friends sat together, and there was something that he'd said, and they looked at each other and they said, actually, Colin, that's my friend, and what you said to my friend is actually for me. So he said, right, forgive me. And anyway, so he clarified all that up. Anyway, whilst he was doing that, there was a woman in the gods, as we call them in the theatres, but she was in the gods, and like three times he had to stop and go to it, because if he heard any commotion in the audience, he stopped straight away because he wanted to make sure everybody was all right. And I'd watched him do that a few times. Um, and this lady, he did exactly the same thing. And in the end, he'd already asked her twice, and she said, "No, no, it's okay." And he went back a third time. And she then kicked up a bit of a fuss, saying, "Well, you said this to that lady, and then she said no, and then you said this to that lady, she said no, and then all of a sudden, now it's right." So she was trying to sort of out him and say, "Well,
Mm.
actually, what I'm saying is wrong." Excuse me. And in the end, he said, "Right, house lights up and everything." So he said, "Right, ladies, be truthful and tell me, is this and this what happened? Yeah, I said this to you. Yeah, but actually it's for you, and vice versa. Yeah, what you're saying, Colin, is absolutely true. We've never met you, blah, blah, blah." And he turned around and he said, "Now, madam, does that clear that up for you?" And he said, "You know what? I've just about had enough of you." He said, "Three times you disturbed the show. I'm not having it. And the 600 other people here that aren't having it either. Get out." And he was quite,
Love it.
because he was so passionate about his work, so passionate that he wouldn't. He was always open to listen to people that had difference of opinions, which is obviously what we were saying earlier on. And he'd have that conversation as an adult. But when you've got somebody that's disturbing,
Mm,
not only an event like that for 600 people, but disturbing a message for for somebody, which is
Mm.
it's unacceptable. So anyway, he said, "Right, I'm going to leave the stage, and once she's out the building, I'll come back on." So he came off the stage. He stood next to me. He said, "Craig, let this be your first lesson." He said, "Take no shit off anybody wherever you are." He said, "And if you're with me and something like this happens," he said, "do exactly what I've just done." He said, "Because I've got your back." He said, "Not having that." And anyway, so 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, she was escorted out. She was out of the building. We then, oh, well, Colin went back on stage and said to everybody, he said, "Right, I'll carry on now. I've still got whoever it was that was there." And he said, "And what I'm going to do is I'll pay for the extension at the theatre," because obviously he would have had to have been out by a certain time, but
mm,
he went over and said, "Because you've lost 15 minutes of time with me, I'm going to extend the event by 15 minutes." And that's exactly what he did. And because he said to me, he goes, "You've got the thing there where either you upset 599 people by letting her carry on, or you upset one person um, and not the other 599. He said, "I know what I prefer to do." So that was one of the
Yeah.
first lessons I learned with him. But I also learned as well that being a medium, it's I used to, yeah, and I'm always very open and honest about this. I always used to years ago look on the website of like Colin, Derek, Sally, all these people, like the big names in mediumship, and used to think that's where I want to be, that's what I want to do. But I've actually learned the grass isn't always greener. Where people think being known and being out there publicly is amazing, and being in these wonderful venues is amazing. It's actually a lonely journey as well. Spending so much time away from home, missing out on socials with family and friends. So you kind of learn what's important. And I through Colin, I've met some other wonderful people, like, and made very good friends in Billy Cook, who's that literally I speak to him every day. Gordon Smith. These are the kind of people that have had this same or similar journey. So I've learned to actually think, "Do you know what? I'm not bothered about being the famous medium. I just want to get on with my work. I just want to do my work. And if that means I'm only in front of 40 or 50 people when I do a demonstration, I'm all right with that. I'm happy. I'm not bothered of going into big theatres and having 6, 7, 800 people in front of me. Obviously, if an opportunity came up and it was the right opportunity, you'd be daft kind of not to. But at the same time, I'm content in what I'm doing now. And I think had I not had that experience with Colin, I wouldn't have known and I wouldn't have seen it.
Hmm.
And it may be a very, very different um, position that I've been with my mediumship now, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot I
Yeah.
took away from that experience, a lot, hell of a lot. Yeah.
I bet there was. Bet there was.
And you talked about earlier, like the challenges you had last year, how tough it's been. Through your journey, what other kind of challenges have you had? Like, has there been people that have been disruptive, or, it I think if you kind of give us a bit of an idea of some of the things that have really got you to the point of going, I don't want to do this anymore, or when you're just like, I've had enough of this shit, or
Yeah.
it gets hard. It's tough. It's tough being a medium, especially a medium on tour like yourself and doing so much.
Good. I think yeah, I mean, touch wood. I've been looking in the sense that whenever if I've done events and there's been somebody that's been a little bit, say, disruptive, most of the time I've not really had to jump in and say anything because you find that other people in the event, other people in the congregation, are the first people to jump in and say, "Well, listen, if you're not happy, do one. There's the door. Just leave.
Mm.
Don't interrupt it for people like us. We're enjoying it. Sod off." Um,
Yeah.
So you tend to find that very rarely does that happen, but at the same time, excuse me, at the same time, um, I've also I'm trying to think, I mean, I've had a couple of times where people have kicked off at one another, and I'm like, stop, not having this. This is not the time or place. And you know, uh, I get not everybody believes in what we do. That's absolutely fine. But then I present the question to people: if you are absolutely certain that you don't believe in this, if you are what we would call a cynic, that no matter what, like, whether it was me or another medium, no matter what we say to you, if you just would not believe at all, why waste your time and money to go and see a medium? Because if you
Yeah.
know you don't like Indian food, you're not going to go to an Indian restaurant. So why waste your time and
Yeah.
money for that to just basically moan and say, "Oh well, I don't like that." It baffles me sometimes. But I also get when I meet people that are skeptical. Now, I think it's healthy to be skeptical, and I endorse that. I say to people, listen, I think it's a good thing because, and there was one point in particular, one event I did in Coventry a couple of years ago now, and as I was working, I don't know, we had about 80 people at this venue that I was booked for, and as I was working, this husband and wife took the last message, and this guy came through. I believe he took his own life and things. Anyway, so other things that I was saying, this guy was like basically saying, "Yeah, I understand," but his wife had to sort of say, "Come on, put your hand up." So he put his hand up and he started crying and got emotional. Anyway, at the end, he said to me, he goes, "Listen," he said, "I don't believe in this. I don't believe." He said, "I came here tonight to try and show her and disprove what mediums actually do." And he said, "But I can't." He said, "Because there are things that you've said that you shouldn't know, but you do." And he was great about it. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. um, but also at the same time, do you know what one of the biggest challenges I find, and some people might sort of slate me for this, but I'm going to be open and honest because I
Go
think
on.
I think when you go into when you are on the journey of developing your mediumship, um, you have to not not everybody's your friend. Let's just put it that way. And it's the same as life, I suppose. It's like when you go to work, people might be nice to you, but actually behind your back, they're slagging you off. And I think in mediumship, sadly, it can be similar. And, I
Mm.
sort of said earlier on before we came on that, and I've said it openly in the churches that I've met some of the most spiteful people in the world of mediumship, and I've also met some of the most beautiful people in the world of mediumship because you know I've learned over the years who my true friends are. I've learned that,
Yeah.
and people that if I've got something big happening or opportunities coming, I'm like, right, I ain't telling you, and I'm not telling you, but I'll tell you
Mm.
because I know who to trust. And it's quite sad, really. It is quite sad.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as I said earlier on, not everybody's going to get on. Not everybody likes each other, but at the same time, there's I won't say the name until we're off air, then I can tell you. But there's one medium who openly, me and that medium, we don't see eye to eye. However, and we haven't done for a long time. We haven't done for a long time. However, I can't say anything bad about his mediumship because as a medium, he's very good. And so I think that's where you've kind of got to be mindful that, listen, just because perhaps you don't see eye to eye with somebody doesn't mean to say you can't sit there or stand there and say, but you can't deny their ability. That's good. That is because
Yeah.
if you're true, if you're true what you believe in and what you do as a spiritualist medium, psychic medium, if you truly believe in what you endorse as a medium, that the afterlife and that our loved ones are there, then it shouldn't be about us, but it should be about the communicator that's coming through from the spirit world, and it should also be about the sitter, the client that's receiving that communication. They're the only important people. Yeah, we're that telephone line, but they're the important people. And I think, and a piece of advice that was given to me many years ago is that just keep those people that you trust close to you, and that's what I've learnt. I've learnt, and you grow a thick skin in this as well, and you can be you can be out and about. I mean, you mentioned Pride earlier on. I was at Pride last year, and some friends that I was talking to, and the one friend, he was like adamant. He said it's just absolute BS what you do. He said it's just nonsense. He goes, you can't talk to dead people, you can't see dead people. I'm like, all right, whatever. He said, is that all you've got to say on it? I said, well, yeah. I said, I'm not going to stand here and defend something that I know is there. I said, that's your choice. That's your decision. I'm not bothered. And this is a mate, this is. And I'm just like, I'm not bothered. And you are going to meet people. So if you're on this journey and you're starting to go out publicly, just my advice is, listen, if that is somebody else's thought or if that is somebody else's opinion, then that's fine. Let them have that opinion. They're entitled to that. Don't let it affect you or your energy, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, then whatever. My uncle doesn't believe in it. He said, I think once you're dead, you're dead. Or all right then, uncle. But I tell you what, if you go before me, so you come and say hello, it's one of those things. And I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges as mediums that we face is just being able to just being able to support one another. It's like I say, it's a lonely journey. There's loads of challenges within it, of course, but that's just one of them for me. And I'm sure there'll be people that will be watching this thinking, Craig, you can't say that, or you shouldn't say that. But that's all it is. It's the truth. And I've often talked about it in a divine service, in an address, because it's just true. It's fact. So
So Glenda and I talk about that all the time, about what we see in the industry, especially on TikTok, where you've got mediums slanting each other, slanting each other off. Why do you think there is such a divide, Craig? Look, I'm not one of these people who are all love and light, and I'm not that person. However, I believe in kindness and believe in supporting each other. So what do you think it is in this so-called spiritual community that there is such a divide all of a sudden, and such a...
I don't know. I mean, other people. Some people might, depending on the scenario and the context of it, some people might say, "Oh, it's just jealousy," or it might just be that. Excuse me. It might just be that. Granted, like I say, when I was starting, when I was getting to a point, I was starting to serve the churches and everything years ago. I was at a point where I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be, you'd look at the tour posters of the big named mediums. I'm like, yeah, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to do. So you kind of have that aspiration, I suppose. But then, as I say, you realise, oh, this is going to be more of a challenge than what it's being let on to be. But I think the honest answer is I don't know. Like I say, most people might say, oh, well, it's just jealousy. I think some people like drama. I think that's the other thing. It's just
true.
Who they are. That's just who they are. Some people might. I've been in situations where I've listened and I've heard certain people, run somebody else down. I'm like, oh, okay. So and where I've heard somebody running else somebody down, for whatever reason, I'm like, oh. Usually now when I start to hear that, I walk away. I'm like, I'm not interested. I don't want to know. But years ago, and we're going back a few years now, just to remember having somebody say, and I was in like a group of people, and I would just listen to one person talking to somebody else about somebody else, and they were running them down. I'm like, so if you're saying that about them while they're not here, what are you saying about other people that as well? Like, that, so you might be saying things about me, but because I'm in front of you, you're not saying it to me. And so I think like you say, just if you've got nothing nice, it's something Colin always used to say, if you've got nothing nice to say, then say nothing at all. And I think one of my best pieces of advice is, and this is something that I've taken from Billy, is just do your own thing. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry, let them get on with it. If you see, oh, that medium's booked a theatre, or that medium's doing this, just wish them well, let them get on with it. Your journey will lead you to wherever it's meant to be. So yeah, I think there's just different reasons to be honest, but I still say that it's sad as well. That's the thing. It's just sad, and I mean, you could say more, but you just think, what's the point? Because then
what's the point? It's not worth the energy. No.
At the end, and the other thing as well is, and this is my advice again to anybody that's listening that is, on that journey, is that if you do hear somebody talking to you, like another medium perhaps, or somebody from a church or whatever, and they're talking about somebody else running them down, don't take on what that person's saying. Just say, yeah, okay. Have your own opinion. Go and make your own opinion on it. For example, if somebody says, oh, I might go and see so and so, they're at such and such a church, and then somebody else says, "Oh, I won't bother. I saw them a few weeks ago, and they weren't that good." Well, okay, that's your opinion, but go and make your own opinion. Go and watch them for yourself, because you might come up with a very different opinion as well. So, and I think what you people have got to be mindful of as well is, just because one person might say it doesn't mean to say you've got to listen or you've got to believe what they're saying either. Just have your own thoughts and your own opinions. That's what I would say. But most importantly, just keep yourself to yourself, keep your head down, and just go and enjoy what you do, and that's it. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
So, in your opinion, what makes a good medium? What kind of evidence? You're a teacher, you've been doing it for years, you've worked with Colin. What kind of expectation do you want to see when you see a medium work?
I mean, for me, one of the things that I like to teach first and foremost in a class is the structure of a message, and it's not. I don't want it to be like coming across on the platform when the medium's on the platform. That it's like, right, okay, so I've done that, and they've got a checklist in their mind. I don't want it to be that, but I just put a structure together in the classroom to give the students like the foundation of like, right, this is what we're aiming for. But at the end of it, once we've got that, we're then going to put it all together and just allow it to be natural. Because once you've put the structure together, once you've done that, you can then begin to look at the presentation side of things. Then that comes naturally then afterwards. But for me, part of that structure, the first part of a message should be place your communicator. Just tell us who we've got and who it is that you're aware of. So, and I usually say, you could place a communicator within maybe 5 or 6 statements. Hypothetically, you might turn around and say, I become very much aware of a lady from the spirit world. She feels like your grandmother. I know she talks of having dementia, Alzheimer's, when she passes to the spirit world. And she also talks about a husband that had passed before her and the name of Beryl that would mean something. Who would understand what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, somebody puts around and says, well, my nan passed with that. Her husband passed beforehand, and she's got a sister called Beryl. Right, okay, there we go. Then I'm with you. So place the communicator, and it might be that when you said those few bits there, that you might have a couple of people that put their hands up and they might say, yeah, that was my grandmother, but my name's Beryl, hypothetically. So, okay, then you get that little bit more. So for me, ultimately, place the communicator is what I would say and suggest, so as that you know who you've got, because then instead of just turning around and saying, oh, this lady tells me this gentleman tells me that, you can then turn around and say, oh, your grandmother tells me this, or your uncle shows me that. You can make it more personal for your sitter that's receiving the message. And then you want the personality to come alive, and that's where the presentation comes in. As you're working, you're feeling, for example, I mean, I had it recently. I was doing the one of my last events of the year last year, and as I was working, I said, "I've got a gentleman here." I said, "I know that he makes me aware that he's an alcoholic, but he feels like an uncle." And anyway, so I'd said a couple of other bits, and this lady put her hand up, and she said, "Yeah, I'm there." And she was the only one that put her hand up, and he gave me the name of a pub as well. She goes, "That's one of the places where he always used to drink." There was others as well, but that was one of them. And then there was other things that were coming through, and one of them, this has happened a few times now, but I said there's an awareness here of him being able to look after himself. Yeah, that's right. So, but I keep seeing a gun. And she was like, I don't believe that. And anyway, so that came through as well, which was it was hilarious, really. Not that he used it to kill anybody, but it was just something that he'd had. But I just think what brilliant evidence for the spirit world to present, to give validation to that family, to say, actually, yeah, this is your uncle. So, and his personality was all, and literally I kept on seeing Frank Gallagher in my mind, because that's exactly what he was like, and it's all about, like I say, it's all about how you deliver it, how you present it.
Yeah.
Have that laugh, have that giggle, don't be afraid to put that personality in to your mediumship, because then your mediumship comes alive. That's the other thing that's important, I would find, because you don't be sat in a demonstration and they're like, the medium's just sort of stood there in one place saying, I have this lovely lady, she's about this high, I know she struggled with her breathing and she feels very motherly. Who would understand what I'm saying? Right. So this will be, and it's put your personality into your mediumship as well, because then it will come alive, but at the same time, we also have to remember as well that if somebody's new on their journey that may be watching this thinking, oh, hang on, but that's what I do. Well, listen, if you're early into on your early stages of your journey, then you've got that to come yet. You don't know about it. But I'm talking about people that have been doing this for years and years and years and still do it in that way. We talk about the modern approach to mediumship, then make it modern, bring that person alive,
Absolutely.
Allow their personality to be shared through your mediumship, and that's what I would say, because I like fun, I like laughter. In demonstrations I do, naturally there's going to be tears, that's normal, that's just that's life, but I like to see fun and laughter as well in demonstrations.
Absolutely. That's how I work. I always say I want to feel the essence. I want them to feel the essence of their loved one. You can stand there, you can do a tick list all day long, but I don't feel them. Do you know what I mean? So I always try to bring them alive as well. And if I'm correct, Craig, from hearing what you've said, and I've got a bit of a personal interest in this question, but it sounds to me similar to me that when you work on platform, you work indirect, as in you put the information out rather than going straight to a person.
Yeah, so most of the time when I'm working, I do. I'll say, right, and it might be that because I always say to the spirit world as well, take me to where you need me to be in the room, especially if it's like a big room. If there's only 40 people, it's different. But if you've got a room where you've got like 100 people, maybe, or more, I always say, take me to where you need me to be. So sometimes when I'm working, I'll put it out there and I'll say, as I say, I'll say who I've become aware of, and I'll say, right, who understands what I'm saying? And then as I'm working, sometimes I'm like, right, but this is where I feel like I need to be. I'm in this section, in this room here, this is where I feel like I need to be. Then somebody over there puts their hand up and they're like, we understand it all. But then all of a sudden, somebody's like, well, I do as well. And I'm like, that's where I need to be.
Go with the pool, yeah.
So, or sometimes if you've got two people that have got their hands up and they're both on separate sides of the room, I'm like, hang on, you know what, you look lovely, you do, but that's where I need to be,
Yeah.
and that's where I'll go. So, but yeah, I actually had a slight disagreement with a president of a church in the Midlands years ago about
It's
this.
kind of where I'm going because I work indirectly, but like you, if I've got two hands up, I go, I like the look of you, not you. No offense.
Yeah,
And I'll go to where I need to go.
yeah,
But I was told of a spiritualist centre last year. I know I'll go back there again. But I was basically told at the end that I wasn't good enough because well, I should have learned some lessons in that demonstration because I should go directly to a person and tune into that person. And already in my head, I'm going, well, no, because that's psychic, and I'm not working
yeah.
psychically. And that's how. So what? So yeah, back to your. That's and I've heard it called bingo mediumship.
Oh, well,
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
sorry. At the end of the day, as mediums, if you're presenting detailed evidence, which is the intention of what we're doing, if you're giving evidence, for example, you might say, I've got a lady that's here, this is how she passed, and this, and this. And somebody then says to you, are you sure it's a lady you've got? Yeah, I'm sure it's a lady. I can't turn a lady into a man. And I've watched mediums actually do that so that
Yeah,
they
so
can
have I.
deliver the message. But so I was in the Midlands, and I can't deny, again, a beautiful church, absolutely stunning church. But I've not been back since either. But there was one or two other things that happened there as well, which I weren't impressed about. So I was there, and it was the first time that I'd been. And as I was working, the president of the church was there as well, obviously because he's like, new medium, let's see what this guy's like. And I had an idea of where I was going on, or possibly who I was with, but I said what I became aware of, and I said, right, this is where I feel like I need to be. That's where I'm getting drawn to. Anyway, this lady took the message. Yep, lovely. At the end, um, the president sat with me and said, like, lovely Den, but you knew where you were going on that first message. Well, I had an idea of where I was going, yeah. And bearing in mind, this is still fairly early days, considering, I was on the platform, but still fairly early days for me. So I said, well, I had an idea of where I was going. He said, no, you knew. No, I had an idea of where I was going. And this is he said, well, so in my circle, I teach my students go direct. Okay, that's fine. He said, because I believe going direct is good mediumship. So I said, okay. I said, see, in my circle, good evidence is good mediumship. That's what I've been taught. I said, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You've been doing this longer than me. I thought, I'm not having this. I'm not having this. And I was polite and everything. I said, listen, maybe we just need to agree to disagree at the end of the day. But if you're going to tell me that I've got to go direct, maybe it's just best that I don't come back and serve your church. Because if that's how you want every medium to be, and then tough,
Yeah.
basically. So I had the conversation because I was, at the time I was still sat in circle with the wonderful Jeanette Abbott, God bless her, no longer with us. And I sat in circle with her for many years, and it's down to her that where I am with my ability as a medium as well. But I presented the question to her. She goes, "Well, I hope you told him to thingy." So I said, "Well, not quite." She goes, "Well, I would have," and
Yeah, I would have.
and she would have. That's the thing. She goes, because at the end of the day, not every meeting goes direct. It's even
No.
even Gordon Higginson, right? I mean, I never got to see that gentleman work like in life because he died when I was only about 3 or 4. But he's a gentleman that I would love to have sat down with and had various conversations with. But I remember hearing, being told that what he used to do, especially because obviously he used to fill churches up and down the country, and he always used to say to the spirit world, right, as you come through, I want to be able to go to that section, this section, that section, and this section, and that's what he would do, and that's exactly what would happen because he's put that intention there, and that's what would happen. but he would never go direct as such with his message. And I'm like, so I mean, what I get, and you said this quite rightly as well, David, because I've the same belief that if you're going to go, and I've seen mediums do it. I've seen in one demonstration. I was sat in the congregation, and this medium, she said, and she would always go direct. I don't know if she still does. I haven't seen her work for years, and she was on my side of the church for the first two messages, and she goes, "Right, where am I going with this one then?" And she said, "Do you know, actually, I've not been on this side yet. Let me go on this side. Can I come to you, please, sir?" Hypothetically, then she said, "I'm becoming aware within your energy that I become aware here. There's talk about buying a new car, but I keep seeing a red car." And the man said, "Yeah, well, I've just bought a new car, and actually, it's a red car that I've bought." Oh, okay. Because as I'm working with you, I become very much aware of a gentleman. He feels like your father, and this is where I'm getting this from. I'm like, ugh. And I look back now, and I'm like, actually, no. What you've done is, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm really not saying that it's right or wrong, but if you're saying that you're working mediumistically, then be honest and say
It's
I've
about it.
seen this within your
Absolutely.
energy. Don't BS people and make out that it's all coming from the spirit world, because we know as mediums that even in a demonstration of mediumship, there's an element where you're working with the psychic faculty. There's always an element, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes it works and it happens that quick that you don't always have that awareness of when you're working with the psychic faculty. So that's why it's so important to be able to work with both individually, so that you have an awareness of when you're working
Mm.
with them. And so again, but I'm also, like I say, I'm really, really not saying, because that lady, she's a very, very good medium, and like I say, I've seen her work a few times, but I just haven't seen her work for years. So, but when she presents, she does it well. But it's just that when I saw her that night and she did that, I'm like, ooh. So again,
Yeah.
some people might say, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that." But I just think at the end of the day, as long as you've got good intentions and you're coming from the right and the purest of intentions, then you're given that evidence, then who are we to judge at the end of the day?
I always say to people, it's just a snobbery I don't like. And I say to people, do you really think spirit care how you get the message to someone? As long as you get it to the right place, whether it's indirectly or directly, do you think they actually care? And
Yeah,
so I don't think, and I've seen mediums go direct, and it doesn't always work, including the teacher that
absolutely.
was teaching us to do it. Do
Really.
you know? Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I look at that, but then was telling us that we're doing it wrong. But yeah, just say it anyway. But yeah, it's just that whole snobbery about it. Just let people get on with doing it how they do it, and that's
I
the
mean,
important
during
thing.
We
during
we all we all are different. We all read differently.
yeah,
So
absolutely. But it wouldn't pay us to work the same either, because otherwise, I mean, some people, they come to me, and I'm sure you guys as well have the same thing, but I have people that will come to me and saying, right, I want to book a reading. Yeah, no problem. But I want the cards. Do you do the cards? Now, I've only ever really used the cards if I'm doing TikTok or if I've done a Facebook live feed, just as a tool psychically, and I'll only ever use two or three cards, and literally the reading, or the mini reading would last maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And sometimes the spirit will do present themselves as I'm working as well. But I've got friends that work with the tarot cards and oracle cards, and that's their forte, that's what they're good at. So I'll always say, listen, I'm not your person, you need to
Mm,
go, here's a couple of names, go, you decide who it is that you want to choose, but they're people that I would highly recommend, because that's what they're good at, that's what they do. And I think it's so important that people offer each other. That's like, for example, somebody might contact me and say, Craig, are you available to come and serve us at this church or the centre, whatever? And let's just say it's somewhere down in London. And I say, well, actually, I'm not available that day. I can't, because I'm somewhere else. But listen, I know somebody else that can. I might say, drop David a line. He's not far from you. He might be able to help you out. So it's about also helping one another as well within mediumship, because at the end of the day, you just never know. You just never know when you might need a favour either. That's the
yeah,
other thing. But
that's
yeah,
true.
no, we all work differently. We all work in our own unique way, and I think it's important that everybody just respects that as well. That's the thing.
Yeah, well, they should do, shouldn't they?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. absolutely.
As long as they can back it up with the evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we
Uh,
had talking like the psychic and mediumship a few years ago when we were in the lockdown. I was running a couple of different circles with a couple of mediums, and one being Billy, and we had one lady who joined us, and we sort of said, you know, we were just doing 4 weeks at a time because we didn't know what was happening because we were getting locked down like a month at a time, weren't we?
Mm.
And and we'd said to the students, right, we're going to be looking at the psychic faculty and the mediumship as well. You know, we're going to be looking at them. And the first the first week was the psychic, so that we could start off with basic, because we also had people that were still quite new to the whole mediumship world. Excuse me. So anyway, after the first session, just the first session, we got an email from a lady who booked and paid to be with us for the month, and she said, "I won't be joining the circle anymore. I won't join the class anymore because I'm a medium. I'm not a psychic." And I ummed and ahed and had to reply to that message because I turned around and said, "Well, there's your first lesson. You need to
Mm.
realise
mhm.
actually, if you're a medium, then you're also
Medium, you're a
psychic
psychic.
awareness. So there's your first lesson." And in the end, I just didn't bother. I thought I'm not going to start because I kind of got the feeling that she was going to sort of maybe start, if you like, and I just thought I'm not going to do it. So I just said, okay, not to worry, you know. But we did explain that the first week would be psychic, and then we'd go into the mediumship. But all the best on your journey, and just get on with it. Let them get on with it. So, but again, she possibly now thought, oh, what a silly thing that was to do, because, and
Mm.
she may have a difference of an opinion now. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Well, Frank, before
Yeah.
we finish, there's some questions we want to ask, and I want
Yeah,
to get into the paranormal.
yeah,
Because if I'm correct, you did do some, what do you call them, paranormal investigations? Is that
yes,
the right
yeah, yeah,
term to use?
yeah, yeah.
So how did that come about? Was that something you always envisioned in getting involved in?
No, to answer the last question, no, it wasn't something I envisaged at all. So what happened was, there was a guy that I used to train with in Tamworth in the Midlands when I did karate over there. Um, and we just got talking, and he said, "Oh," he said, "I'm part of a paranormal like study group," and he said, "and we often run paranormal investigations." So I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. That does." So he said, "We've actually got one coming up, whenever it was. Would you be interested?" I went, "Yeah, all right then." I just thought, so another
Mm.
idea to it. Let's see what happens. So it was at the Moat House in Tamworth. Oh, what a stunning venue! And we had a meal and everything to at the start, and then I got introduced to a lady called Nikki Goldingay, who just has a vast wealth of knowledge in the paranormal. So we did the investigation. I took part as a guest that night, and then she said, "You know what? I'm intrigued with you. Would you consider maybe doing a demonstration here? But also, would you consider joining us? Maybe, you know, you don't have to be part of the team if you don't want to, but it'd be nice just to have you, you know, maybe when you can study groups and the events." And I did, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it because a lot of the time we didn't work with the public. It was all just sort of behind closed doors because we were more interested in learning more than anything. We
Mm.
weren't, it wasn't about money making, it wasn't a business, it was a hobby. So I loved it. And then when I went full time professional as a medium, there was a company. I'm trying to think what they were called now because it's been a few years. Joe would kill me if she thought I forgot the name of the company. Anyway, I just happened to look, and they were needing and wanting mediums because this was a company that used to run sometimes two or three events over a weekend, and sometimes they'd had two events going on in different parts of the country on the same night.
Mm.
So they wanted to grow. So I went along and met them and did an event with them, and they got to know me. And I was like, yeah, and that was at Dudley Castle. that was, and that was it. And they said, "Yeah, would you join us?" So then that, because I was then full, like as I say, professional as a medium, I'd just gone professional. I thought, right, yeah, well, I need to work as well, but it's also something that I enjoy, and that's kind of how that started for me. And then sadly, that company went under because again, there are so many companies out there now that do the
Mm,
same thing. It's like dog eat dog.
mm,
Um, so and one of my favourite locations in the country is Dudley Castle. The historian there, Amy, she again vast of knowledge. She was a joy to work with when I was there. So I used to just then host at Dudley Castle for them, and also my own events as well. And then it got to a point where I thought, I think I'm done with this now. It's time to perhaps move on and just concentrate on my mediumship, and also I was done with being out till 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the
yeah, I
morning.
bet.
Like, no. So, but it was good fun. It was good fun, definitely.
Funny, as soon as you brought up the paranormal, my earring fell out. So tell me, just quickly touching on that, just for our listeners, because we always talk about, fear and all that sort of thing around paranormal, around spirit and that. Is there, with all the work that you've done as paranormal work, spirit work, do you think that there is anything to be scared of, or you should protect yourself, or is there any fear that, that is there? Any of your kind of advice for
So, I
people
mean, my,
listening?
my 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 thoughts are on it, and this. So, when Nikki used to run the few events that we did run, she would always say to people, "Listen, we don't, but as a team, we don't believe that you need protection. Because at the end of the day, you may become aware of the spirit or the energy of a spirit in the building, but they're not." This, again, our opinion, but they're not interested in you. And a lot of the time as well, when we were going around, I'd actually get the feeling as though actually I've got somebody's loved one coming through. This isn't an energy of somebody here. This is somebody coming through from the spirit world to talk to a loved one stood next to me. So I very much believe that there's nothing to worry about. But people often say, but where there's good, there's got to be bad. Yeah, there is. But for me, the bad would be people like, Hitler and Saddam Hussein that have done bad in the world. That's my thought on it. But this is
Yeah.
where me and Nikki sort of had I say we just didn't agree on this. But I got it from her perspective and she got it from mine. And she would say to me, I don't, because she very much believed in let's just say the darker side of energies as well. She would, and she still does, but I very much don't,
Mm,
because if that
Yeah.
wasn't the case,
yeah.
I look at it and think, well, hang on, I'm doing this. My loved ones in the spirit world aren't going to let anything happen to me anyway. So,
Hmm.
so I think
There
a
you
lot,
go.
in my opinion, if people think there's something negative or bad, it's because, and there's another story there really, but it's because perhaps they're not used to feeling the energy of the spirit world, so they're thinking, "Oh, hang on, this is all." No, it's not. It's not nothing horrible or nasty. It's just the fact that this is your first experience of connecting and communicating, so you're not used to it. A bit like the first time you're on an airplane, you think, "Oh my goodness, what's going to happen?" And all of a sudden, that feeling of going up. It's not a great experience to begin with because you're like, oh, I'm really nervous. But then when you've done it a few times, it becomes the norm. It's the same with this, in my
Mm.
opinion, again is what I would say with that. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything to be scared of at all. No.
Did it convince you of anything? So do you believe in hauntings, or do you believe more in what I've heard of the stone tape theory, where the building just replays the memories of those who were there before?
I see. For me, I think it's all about the yeah. Because look at it. I look at it like this. I do. This is the way I would see it. So when my time comes and I go to the spirit world, I'm no longer around, but. I am, for example, looking, or every now and again I might pop into my old home and stuff, and I might have a little gander to think, oh blimey, remember, a bit like I do now because I live in South Yorkshire. So when I go back to the Midlands, I have a little drive round of places where I used to live and where I used to go to play and stuff. So I think we have that ability, of course, to be able to go back to these places, but at the same time I look at it and think, especially like places like castles and stuff, why would or why would people of like from back in those days still be lingering around the grounds of the castle?
Mm.
But I've heard a few theories lately where there was an interview from an American medium. Not like a named one that we would know, like John Edward, but and this lady said, when we get to the spirit world, it's the same as what it is here. We have a home to live in, we have a garden to look after. We eat food and stuff. I'm like, do we though? And I'm
But
like,
do we?
exactly. But that's opened up my mind because I my theory has always been that when we pass this, the physical shell
Gone.
is gone. It's the
Gone.
spirit inside that goes into the next world.
Yeah.
So, but again, because I've never been to the spirit world myself, as such, I might become aware of it, but I've never been there. And I'm still yet to be told what it's really like. I've only ever had one experience, but so I'm still open with that theory. But going back to your question, because I do tend to waffle on, the idea of people lingering around, I don't know. I'm open. I'm open, especially because before I'd seen this interview and that conversation of that the American story, I would have thought, well, why would they be there? Sure, it's just their energy that's like
Mm.
within the walls, like you say, and it's just being replayed. And you go in there as a medium, you have that awareness, and you're like, oh yeah, so this must have been so and so's room, or this must have been that little boy's room, or whatever. That's how I used to think, but I'm sort of like my idea and my theory of it is now starting to change a little because of that conversation and interview that I saw. But I kind of like that because now I'm sort of evolving again my mind and
Yeah.
like, let's see where we go with it.
Yeah.
So
Always learning, always
absolutely, indeed.
expanding. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Do you want to get onto your funny ones? Your funny questions?
Okay.
As we start
Okay.
wrapping up.
So I always have funny questions, Craig. So do you believe that pineapple belongs on pizza?
Yeah.
Oh, dearie me. Dearie
Absolutely.
Oh,
me.
dearie
Oh,
me.
dear.
So we've heard a few different people say they like tuna and things like that on
Oh
pizza,
no,
which is, I see, I'm the same, but
no,
David's partner
no,
loves it. So I was
You're trying to
like,
no.
keep
no,
a tally on who wins here. Because I don't
Oh,
like them.
I'm going,
Yeah. Yeah.
I won last season, so we're going to see who's going to win this
no.
season.
Tuna is not on a pizza. Pineapple is definitely.
Yes.
Mm.
So we'll share a pizza then.
I'm very
And the other
disappointed in
one
Craig.
is,
Excuse me.
the other one is, so if you could pick a superpower and one of them was going back in time, freezing time, what would be your superpower and why?
Oh, see, usually my go-to with a superpower is to fly. I'd love to fly. That would be what I would love to. But if I had the choice of going backwards or forwards in time, I'd go backwards. I'd go backwards in time. And I'm not saying necessarily to change anything because I think obviously, things have happened like for everybody, but things have happened in my life that have um, got me to where I am today. So I kind of wouldn't want necessarily anything as such to change, but I'd only go back so as that I could experience certain things again, to be honest, because the good old days that I miss. So yeah. But oh yeah, so that's what I'd probably do.
I like it. I like it. So David gets to ask the final
Oh,
questions.
do I? Oh, privileged.
Yeah.
So, Craig, if today were your last day on Earth, and if this was your final conversation, what legacy would you want to leave behind?
Um, the idea of just enjoy life. Life is for living. Don't worry so much. Don't worry about what other people might think. Don't worry about what other people might say. That's their problem, not yours. But most importantly, the legacy that I would want people to remember me is to say, do you know what? Remember what Craig always used to say when he was here with us? He always used to say, remember, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Don't stress, just enjoy life. That is what I would probably want people to remember me for, in more than anything, to be honest. I think that's a really good question.
Marvelous. That's a good answer as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And Craig,
Because
before we go,
worrying isn't worth it. Things always work out.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
things work out.
So Craig, before we go, what have you got coming up? Where can people find you? You got the book. I can see your book behind you, or my.
Yeah, see the book.
It is the,
yeah. So I'm actually writing the second book. So that's in play. And then I'm back on the road. I'm hitting a few new places this year. So I'm heading down to Colchester and Sittingbourne in Kent as well. So I'm looking forward to that. What have I got coming up? I've got I will be where am I heading? So I'm heading down to the south, like Howland Island and Southampton next month. Then where am I going? Then I'm off out to Switzerland in April. And I'm excited because I'm heading back to Sweden, and for the first time I'm heading to Denmark with Billy. So that I'm really excited about. So, but there's so much that's happening, and kind of literally. Over, I mean, I had a 2-hour conversation last night with the director at the radio station. So there's just some really exciting things that are up and coming, to be honest. So watch this space is what I would say. Yeah, watch this space. But
so much,
and you'll see what's up and coming. So yeah.
So where can people find you? On Facebook, website as well?
Yeah, so Facebook, if you just look up Psychic Medium Craig Morris, the page is verified, so you know it's me. Same with Instagram as well, TikTok, of course, and the website, all the W's, craig-morris.co.uk. And you can find out what I'm up to and where I'm going to be, like my seminar that I've got coming up. So everything's on the website. So yeah.
Marvelous. We'll put all the links in the show notes as well, so people will be able to find you easier. Well, Craig, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you for spending today with us in the Spirit Lounge. And oh my God, it's been great getting to know you.
Thank you.
Wow.
No, thank you.
What a journey.
Pleasure to talk to you both. Thank you very much.
Amazing. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in as always. And we'll see you again soon in the Spirit Lounge. Thank you for joining us in the Spirit Lounge for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed what you heard. And if you did, please like and share the podcast. And if you can, please leave us a comment or review, as it really helps us out.
And if you want to hear us talk about a particular topic or have a question you'd like our viewpoint on, then email them to us on either davidhmedium@outlook.com or glenda-marie1@hotmail.com, and we'll get to them as soon as possible.
Lastly, if you'd like to connect with us individually and book our services, you can check out our websites. Glenda's website is www.glendamariepsychicmedium.com.
And you can find David at www.davidhmedium.co.uk.
For now, it's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.
Join us again soon in the Spirit Lounge.